Next we have portfolio management, an overview, end of chapter questions. Starting with question number 1. Investors should use a portfolio approach to do what? Reduce risk, monitor risk, or eliminate risk. When an investor combines the different assets into a portfolio, such a combination should reduce the portfolio's risk by reducing the returns on the volatility of the portfolio. So it reduces the portfolio risk. That makes A to be the correct option. Which of the following is best reason for an investor to be concerned with the composition of a portfolio? Risk reduction, downside risk protection, avoidance of investment disaster. First of all, as I just said, that when we combine different assets into a portfolio, this should reduce the portfolio's volatility, right? So it's primarily focused towards risk reduction. But at the same time, a portfolio approach does not provide any protection against the downside risk. This is not possible, or no guarantee that the portfolio will always avoid losses. So this is not possible. B and C are not possible. So that makes A to be the correct option. With respect to the formation of portfolios, which of the following statements is most accurate? A. Portfolios affect risk less than returns. That is totally opposite to what we have studied in the overview. Portfolio affects risk more than they affect the returns. So portfolio affect risk more than the return. That is the right option. B. Next. Which of the following institutions will on average have the greatest need for liquidity? Banks, investment companies, non-life insurance companies. Interestingly, they all need liquidity. Banks need liquidity, investment companies need liquidity, non-life insurance companies, they need liquidity. But on comparison of these three, banks, they are the one who need to be relatively more liquid than others, right? They need to pay the account holders when they claim on their demand deposit. So that makes A to be the correct option. Which of the following institutional investors will most likely have the longest time horizon? Defined benefit plan, university endowment, life insurance companies, all these three have long time horizons. But out of these, which has the longest time horizon? University endowments. Why? Because most of such endowments are formed with this intention of having perpetual lives. That is forever. So that's the reason out of these, a university endowment is the correct option. Hence, B is the right answer. A defined benefit plan with a large number of retirees is most likely to have a high need of income, liquidity, or insurance. Well, since there are large number of retirees, so in this case, income is essential to meet the cash flow obligations of retirees. So yes, defined benefit plans, they have need for liquidity, but the need for liquidity is typically quite low. For large number of retirees, we need to have consistent cash flows to meet the obligations to retirees. So that makes A to be the correct option. And why not C, insurance? Yes, a retiree may need life insurance. However, a defined benefit plan does not need insurance. So that makes A to be the correct option. Which of the following institutional investors is most likely to manage investment in mutual funds? Insurance companies, investment companies, and university endowments. Insurance companies, yes, they own mutual funds, but they do not issue or redeem shares of the mutual funds. University endowment funds, yes, they may own mutual funds, but they do not issue or redeem shares of mutual funds. Whereas investment companies, they manage investments in mutual funds. They may issue shares or they may redeem shares of mutual funds. So that makes B to be the correct option. With respect to portfolio management process, the asset allocation is determined in the planning step, feedback step, or execution step. First of all, the client's specific requirements are to be established. Once done, then we use that to determine the client's target asset allocation. And this occurs in the execution step of the portfolio management process. If you read the theory, you would know that's C. The planning step of portfolio management process is least likely to include an assessment of the client's securities, constraints, or risk tolerance. Remember, in the planning step, we determine the client's objectives, constraints, risk tolerance, but securities are analyzed in the execution step, not in the planning step. That's why A is the right answer. With respect to portfolio management process, the rebalancing of portfolio's composition is most likely to occur where? In the planning step, no. Rebalancing occurs in the feedback step. Portfolio monitoring and rebalancing, it occurs in the feedback step of the portfolio management process. This is all straightforward from the theory. Now next, an analyst gathers the following information for the asset allocation of the three portfolios, portfolio 1, 2, 3, fixed income, equity and assets, alternative assets composition is given. Which of the portfolio is most likely appropriate for a client who has a high degree of risk tolerance? Okay, so for an investor who is ready to take on more risk, he has a higher degree of risk tolerance. Here we have the risk for him. These two portfolios, 1 and 2, they offer comparatively higher risk than. But when you see that the portfolio 3 has a higher exposure to alternative investments, so that makes portfolio 3 to be the riskiest one in all these. And since the investor has higher degree of risk tolerance, put 3 to him. That's C. Which of the following investment products is most likely to trade at their net asset value per share? Exchange traded funds? No, exchange traded funds can trade at premium or at discount. Open-end mutual funds? Yes, open-end funds trade at their net assets value per share, NAVs. So that makes B to be the correct option. Next, which of the following financial product is least likely to have capital gains distribution? First, we need to differentiate between capital gain and capital gain distribution. When you purchase an asset for $10, you sell it at $15. The difference between buy and sell $5, this is called the capital gain, right? So exchange traded funds, they can result in capital gain. When you buy and sell an exchange traded fund and you generate a return like this, this is the capital gain. But exchange traded funds, they do not distribute the capital gains among the investors. This is incorrect. There is no capital gain distribution in exchange traded funds. So that makes A to be the correct option. Which of the following forms of pooled investments is subject to least amount of regulations? It's straightforward from your previous reading. Alternative investments, hedge funds. Hedge funds are currently exempt from the reporting requirements of a typically public investment company. Hedge funds are least tightly regulated among these all ABC. That makes A to be the correct option. Which of the following pooled investments is most likely characterized by few large investments? Hedge funds and venture capital funds, they may have many small investors, but buyout funds or the private equity firms, they make only a few large investments in private companies with the hope of selling the restructured companies in 3 or 5 years. So buyout funds, they would most likely have few large investments. So that makes B to be the correct option. And it ends your portfolio management overview. End of chapter questions.